Alright guys, Genesis over here at the shop. There's Daddy pulling in. We're about to throw on some springs. Alright guys, get the car in the shop here and I'm going to raise it up first. If you don't have a lift and you want to put it up on 4 jack stands, get it nice and stable up there. And then you can start pulling the wheels off and getting down to the actual struts. So once we get it jacked up, the first thing we're going to do, pull off these 3 bolts. And then there's another 2 or 3 bolts that are on the actual spindle down there. So we'll pull that off. All right guys, so on your strut, this side is a 17 that fits kind of loose. This is a 19 on that side. You've got a 19 up here, okay, that goes down to your sway bar. That's your sway bar link. And then this is a 12 for your brake. So all of those bolts have to come off, and then we'll take off the top 3, which are 14s on here. All right, now we've got it supported. You want to use a floor jack or something to make sure this holds itself up so we don't pull that brake line. So now we're gonna finish getting those bolts the rest of the way out. And that's that sway bar end link. It's gone, brake line's gone. Then we should be able to do the top bolts and get this out. All right, so this one here, everything's unbolted now down here. It's good to go. So next is the 14. 3 of those at the top. Now that's just hanging in there right now. So we'll grab it. Whoa! Oh, something flew up. It was the strut bar. There it is. So now we can do the fun part. Compressing the spring. All right, so here is the strut, and these are spring compressors. So these will snap on there, and then these pins kind of hold them in, keep them from falling off. And as soon as we get this down on there, we'll run these bolts in. That'll compress the spring down. Then we can take off this end bolt, and everything will come apart. All right, so I've got both of them on there, and they're as opposite as I can get them because it gets tight where the end of the coil is. So now we just slowly work them down a little bit at a time on each side. That will slowly pull in the springs. This can be really dangerous and scary. All right, so now you can see that the shock is moving in and compressing, and this spring is just kind of flopping around in here a little bit. Doesn't have to go all the way down. It's just got to be enough to get it there. Right, so here's our spring with the compressors off, and here's our new one. Check that out, pimp purple, so that everybody knows that you bought the cheap ones. Yeah, so the reason these are purple is because these are the cheapest ones I could find on eBay, and I think they'll be fine. We'll see what happens. I would rather had red or blue, but purple it is. Right, the spring compressors are now on the new spring, and we just got to pull it down just enough to get the bolt on the end. Get that tightened down. Pull it just a little bit down all the way around. It won't take too much on these newer ones because they are a little bit shorter. But as long as you can get this set back into place that it came, and this goes back on, and there's a little tab that it kind of locks into. As long as all that goes back together, then you're good to go. So there it is. So that's all I needed to do. So now we just run that nut back on there, run it down, and we'll be good to go. Put it back on, do the other side. All right, here's our new coilover strut. Take it, feed it back up into here, into our 3 bolts. All right, now I just need a couple of those 14mm over there. All right, so the strut here is just, these are all loose so it can move around a little bit. Then we got to set this back into place, and this is going to want to move on all different directions, but probably not the way we want it to go. But you just got to line these bolts back up. And this wasn't too bad. I think we're pretty close. Yeah, there we go. Now for the bottom bolt. Yeah, that wasn't too bad at all. And then this will come back through into here. Alright. We got all of our nuts on, bolt the cable back up, hose, good to go. Alright, so now we're on the rear, and at the rear you've got 2 bolts here, which we already started to loosen. So one of those goes to your shock mount, the other one goes here to the spindle. This front one, or sorry, this rear one right here, goes to your sway bar. So those are the only 3 bolts that have to come out. So once you pull those out, pull it apart, we'll show you what to do next. All right, so once you get all this disconnected, just slide your bolts back in, and then take a pry bar, put the pry bar in here, and that'll allow you to pull this down, and then the spring essentially just falls out. So you just grab it and pull it out of there. Just like that. All right, so I got this bolt back in for the shock. I'm going to continue to jack this up until it lines up, and then we're going to put this one in. We'll see if it plays nice and everything lines up perfectly. And it might, but usually you have to play with it a little bit. We'll see what happens. All right guys, last step is throw the wheels back on and make sure that you torque them down. All right guys, lowering her down. See what it looks like. Oh yeah, it instantly looks pretty low. So it's still gonna have to settle. Most springs in there, any car that's been up on a lift or jacked up for a while, has got to settle back down, but man, that don't look like it needs to settle at all. It looks almost perfect. Sweet. All right guys, the lowering springs were definitely worth it. These are the absolute cheapest ones you could buy off of eBay, and that's why they were purple. Otherwise I wouldn't have picked purple, but it don't really matter, you can't see them. But now the tire, pretty much the top edge of the tire is right at the edge of the fender, which is perfect. It's the perfect amount of lowering. You can see that has moved up in the wheel a pretty good bit. It said like 1.5, I think, in the front, 1.2 or something like that in the rear, something along those lines. But it seems like it's dropped lower than that. I mean, this seems absolutely perfect. I don't know if it could get much better than this, because it gives it just a little bit meaner stance. I mean, it's, you know, it's amazing how much better a car looks when it's just slightly lowered. So I think that's perfect right there. So super happy with them. Driven on them last night and today, and they just seem to be great. So the ride is now, you can tell, obviously you can tell it's lowered a little bit, so it's a little bit harsher than it would be, but it's actually a super comfortable ride still. It's not like crazy uncomfortable or anything like that. It actually feels pretty good. You know, it still feels like a luxury car going down the road. Compared to some of the other lowered things I've had, it actually rides real good. So, and the car feels tighter to the ground. The steering feels tighter. Everything feels better and feels, you know, more like a sports car than a family car. I mean, it feels real nice and tight. And I'm super happy with the springs, and hopefully they stay good. I don't know why they wouldn't, but super happy with them now. I appreciate it, guys.